I crossed over into this world as the Dusk Sovereign, only to be bound as a beast tamer's creature by a reincarnated empress. But the moment she sees my status panel, she dissolves our contract without a second thought, all because I appear as nothing more than a cracked, worn-out clock face. In her eyes, I am completely worthless. Just trash. Now, without a contractor to bind me, I have exactly 24 hours before I vanish from existence. Just as I resign myself to that fate, a gentle voice breaks the silence. Celine, are you really throwing him away? The speaker is Lyra Bell, the girl every student at school knows as the campus beauty. If you don't want him, can I give it a try? I haven't awakened a single ability. Celine lets out a sharp scoff, her expression dripping with contempt. Trash with trash. Now that's a perfect match. You want this piece of junk? Fine, consider it a gift. Without another word, Lyra strides to the center of the hall. She cradles the battered clock face in her palms with the utmost care. Don't be sad. She doesn't want you, but I do. At this very moment, deep within the clock face's inner space, I receive a crystal clear system notification. As the alert signals that the crisis has been lifted, the sealed power of the Dusk Sovereign erupts from within me, blasting straight through the ceiling of the Grand Hall, and surging all the way into the heavens. The entire sky is stained a deep, burning crimson. Lyra flinches from the terrifying heat and energy exploding out of the clock face, and instinctively lets go. But the ancient clock face doesn't fall. It hovers in midair as its worn wooden shell instantly remolds itself. Then, a voice, vast, commanding and absolute, reverberates through the very soul of every living being present. Rejoice, the sovereign of time is born into this world, the ruler of all time. Everyone in the hall stands frozen, utterly shattered by the cosmic phenomenon and the soul-shaking proclamation. Look, that broken clock, it's taking human form. A sovereign clad in dark gold armor stands tall at the center of the hall, doing nothing but standing there. Yet the invisible pressure, alone, drives every creature in the hall into terrified wails, forcing them to the ground, too afraid to even lift their heads. I turn my gaze to Lyra, who stands beside me, and speak. You have excellent taste. I promise you, together we will climb to the very peak of this world and become the strongest beings alive. The moment my words fade, a brilliant golden pillar of light descends from the sky, locking precisely onto the Dusk Sovereign and crystallizing into the legendary rank, Triple S. The entire hall plunges into absolute silence, and Celine, who had been walking away, is now completely frozen in her tracks. I threw away a being of this magnitude, like discarding trash, with my own hands. Her conviction trembles violently, nearly fracturing at its core, but through sheer force of will she steadies herself. Then, she staggers back toward the hall. She locks eyes with Lyra and speaks. Lyra. That single word pulls Lyra back to reality. Lyra looks up, sees Celine returning, and her fists tighten on instinct. Just now I simply failed to see through his true nature in time. Since I was the one who summoned him, it is only right that I be the one to guide his power. Return him to me. As compensation, I'll grant you a pre-sale grade B contract scroll, and personally mentor you for 3 months. This is the greatest opportunity you will ever get in your life. Don't be ungrateful. Lyra's answer is immediate. I'm sorry, Celine, you are the one who broke the contract. He is my contract partner now, not a bargaining chip. I won't give him to anyone. Celine's eyes go ice cold. She never expected this timid, common girl to actually dare refuse her. She looks away from Lyra, turning her gaze instead to the Dusk Sovereign, who has been silent all along. The fact that I'm willing to come back should be the greatest honor of your existence. You should know who the better choice really is. I, Celine Mist, carry imperial aptitude within me. I possess resources and knowledge far beyond anything you can imagine. Stay with me and you will go further than you ever could otherwise. Faced with what sounds like an irresistible offer, the Dusk Sovereign's dark crimson eyes remain completely unmoved. A low, quiet laugh escapes him. Then, the Dusk Sovereign extends his hand toward Lyra. Lyra looks at the outstretched hand, and the last trace of anxiety in her heart dissolves completely. She places her hand in his without a moment's hesitation. Let's go. Dark crimson temporal energy surges around them once more, wrapping both of them in its embrace. Celine watches their figures fade, especially the way the Dusk Sovereign looks straight through her as if she doesn't exist. And the cold, composed mask she has been forcing herself to wear finally shows a crack. Without me, you won't get far. Before long, Lyra and I arrive at a quiet forest clearing completely deserted. Lyra is still deep in shock, and leans against a nearby tree without even thinking. At that moment, the dark crimson armor standing beside her dissolves into countless dark gold particles of light, merging into the figure at its center. As the light fades, the one standing there is no longer the sovereign of time and space, but a young man with sharp features and white hair. This is Ethan Vale returned to his human form. Lyra stares at the transformation and her mind short-circuits all over again. From the failed awakening to everything that has unfolded since, it all feels too surreal to process. I look at her expression and can't help but find it a little amusing. Back with us, Lyra? My tone is warm and easy, a complete contrast to the commanding proclamation from moments ago. Lyra snaps back with a start, her face flushing red, suddenly unsure where to put her hands. I smile and my tone shifts to something more serious. From this moment on, we are partners bound by a soul pact. From here on out, we are one, a single united force. Lyra feels that firm, warm connection running deep through her soul, and a wave of security and belonging rises within her. She gives a firm nod. Yeah, I'm counting on you. I give her a quick once-over, then raise an eyebrow. Little Lyra, I have to say, your cultivation talent is, well, not great. Lyra's face goes a little pink and she mumbles quietly. Yeah, it's not the best. Seeing her like that, I stopped teasing and let my tone fill with absolute confidence. But none of that matters anymore. From now on, you don't have to do a thing. Don't have to do anything? Then how do I get stronger? Lyra's eyes go wide with confusion. I give a quiet smile. Starting right now, everything that takes time and effort, I handle it. It all feeds directly back to you through our soul pact. I can see the blank look still on her face and realize this concept might be a little too far ahead for her, so I spell it out. Let me put it plainly. Now that you've got me in your corner, Lyra, you're already unbeatable. You just sit back and get stronger. Got it? Just sit back and get stronger? Lyra is completely lost, her brain freezing up all over again. This completely shatters everything she has believed for over a decade. Aren't beast tamers supposed to grow alongside their creatures through hard work and shared effort? How did she end up just getting carried by hers? I look at her stunned expression and give a satisfied nod. Good. Phase 1 of reality-shattering orientation complete. Lyra hears every word of my bold declaration, and while she is genuinely shaken, the insecurity she has carried for so long still leaves her uneasy. But the combat awakening trial is coming up soon. If I stay like this, there's no way I'll make it through. The thought of failing, and of everyone watching, brings a faint redness to her eyes. All talk and no action gets us nowhere. Besides, I need to get a feel for how this world works. Let's go put it to the test, and let you see for yourself exactly what the Dusk Sovereign can do. Before long, the two of us arrive at the dungeon plaza. Through Lyra's explanation, I learn that these portals lead to dungeons, simulated combat zones where creatures from other worlds are faced, rated from 1 star all the way up to 10, with higher ratings meaning greater danger, but also far greater rewards. Just as she finishes, the large display screen at the center of the plaza erupts in dazzling golden light. A server-wide announcement flashes across it. Celine Mist has broken the all-time speed record for that dungeon. The entire plaza erupts in gasps and exclamations. Watching this, the stubborn, competitive fire in Lyra's eyes ignites in an instant. She spins around and looks toward the portal gates with burning anticipation. Which dungeon are we going to? With your power, we should at least start with a 3-star, right? My eyes drift casually across the available dungeons and settle on the most basic, bare-bones beginner dungeon of them all. We're going in there, the beginner one. Lyra's jaw drops. But that place only has level 1 slimes. The experience is basically 0. It's a complete waste of time. Relax, everything is under control. This is exactly the right place to show you, as directly as possible, what it truly means to have dominion over time. We step into the beginner dungeon without delay. Lyra stares at a handful of level 1 slimes, her feelings a complicated mess. So, what do we do now? I let my mind shift, just slightly. An invisible force of time washes over the entire dungeon. Temporal rewrite. Rewriting the existence timeline of all creatures in the dungeon. Direction, accelerate to 10,000 years forward. In an instant, those slimes that had been bouncing around so cheerfully crumble right before Lyra's horrified eyes, visibly disintegrating into dust and drifting away. Kill notifications immediately pop up in front of Lyra, and at the same time she feels a surge of pure energy pouring into her body through the soul pact, her power visibly climbing by a clear notch. That's a level up already? Lyra can barely believe it. She looks around at the now empty dungeon. Where did the monsters go? Before time, all things are equal. They've simply been sent to the future. I activate my ability again. Temporal rewrite, accelerating the dungeon's monster respawn mechanism by 1,000 times. The floor that was just empty erupts with new slimes in an instant, only to crumble back into dust under the acceleration of time. A flood of experience notifications begins flooding the screen beside Lyra, her level climbing at a terrifying pace, shooting all the way to level 20 in the blink of an eye. Lyra stands completely still, mind blown. Even a team with solid talent would need to grind for days in 3 or 4-star dungeons just to reach something like this. But then excitement kicks in and Lyra eagerly pulls up her status panel. Contractor, Lyra Bell. Level 20. Unlock skills, Spirit Barrier, Basic Healing Arts. She turns to the Dusk Sovereign. What is even happening right now? Our experience is shared. When I level up, you level up with me, automatically. Lyra can't hold back, she immediately opens the Dusk Sovereign's panel. Ethan Vale, level 20. Unlock skill, Boundless Liberation. Finisher, 20 Knights, Temporal Shatter. I look at her still curious. Expression impatiently explain. I simply accelerated their lifespan to the equivalent of 10,000 years, and extracted in advance a portion of the experience they would have accumulated over those 10,000 years. And by accelerating time on the dungeon's respawn system, new material is replenished instantly. Lyra's mouth falls open. Rewriting the existence timeline of living creatures, extracting 10,000 year experience in advance, accelerating the respawn cycle? That's insane. You really are the sovereign of time. Let's keep going. We can grind all the way up right here. Good thinking, but efficiency is already dropping. The higher the level, the more experience it takes. These 10,000-year slimes just aren't cutting it anymore. Let's move. We're going straight to a 5-star dungeon. But when Lyra tries to access the exit, she stops cold. What's wrong? Lyra points awkwardly to the side. Well, the beginner dungeon has a rule. You have to stay for at least 10 minutes after entering. It's only been 3. I stare at her, momentarily at a loss for words. Then my mind moves. Temporal rewrite. Accelerate. The world around us warps ever so slightly, and 2 or 3 seconds later I snap my fingers. Done, time's up. Lyra tries the exit again, and this time the teleportation light activates smoothly, sending both of them straight out of the dungeon. Lyra looks at Ethan standing beside her, completely at ease, and only one thought crosses her mind. Which one of us is actually the contracted creature here? As a beast tamer, she's starting to feel like she's just along for the ride. Though honestly, getting carried like this doesn't feel too bad at all. Before long, the two of us arrive at the dungeon registration office. The staff member on duty notices them right away. Back already? Hand me your ID cards. I need to log your levels and performance rating. Hi there, no rush on the log. We'd like to enter another dungeon first. Which dungeon did you have in mind? A 5-star. What? The staff member nearly jumps out of his seat. Do you have any idea what a 5-star dungeon means? That is nothing like the beginner zone. If you bite the dust in a 5-star, you don't come back. And then the long, exhausting lecture begins. Thank you for the warning, but my mind is made up. We're going to the 5-star dungeon. Please process the paperwork for us. Seeing that there is no talking them out of it, the staff member has no choice but to have Lyra sign the death waiver. Fine. Once you sign this waiver, the dungeon management office bears zero responsibility for whatever happens to you. With the waiver signed, we are teleported smoothly into the 5-star dungeon, the Bone Waste. The moment we arrive, a terrifying shriek tears through the air from somewhere in the distance. Without warning, a pack of level 25 bonehounds locks onto them and comes charging with savage howls. Lyra cries out and instinctively moves to activate her spirit barrier. But Ethan is faster. He simply raises one hand with casual ease and flicks his wrist. The bonehounds freeze mid-charge, as if someone has hit the pause button. A heartbeat later, their solid bones turn ashen and brittle, and with a crumbling crash they collapse into a pile of actual dry bones. Kill confirmed, level 25 bonehound. 250 experience points gained. Lyra's jaw hits the floor, a 5-level gap, and still a one-shot kill. She can't help but check the shared status panel again, and sees that Ethan's stats are several times higher than any ordinary contracted creature at the same level. While she is still muttering to herself, I furrow my brow and speak up. Still too slow. These small fry are barely worth the effort. Let's go straight for the dungeon boss. Meanwhile, Lyra's rocket climb from level 1 to 20 in the beginner dungeon has already caught the attention of some very important figures. Back in the dungeon monitoring room, the same staff member who processed Lyra's registration is now staring hard at a special display screen showing a simplified real-time map of the dungeon. The marker labeled G0 shows a clearly updated level reading, 25. In the time it takes to blink, every monster marker surrounding G0 vanishes the instant it makes contact, and the dot is moving toward the boss zone at a breathtaking speed. Back inside the 5-star dungeon, as Lyra and I press deeper, the monsters we encounter grow steadily stronger. Yet no matter what stands in our way, every single one crumbles like paper before my temporal power. Temporal acceleration, 500 years stripped from a bone warrior, and it disintegrates into dust on the spot. Temporal rewind. A wraith is reversed back to its embryonic state. The barely formed specter dissolves before it can even take shape. Localized temporal stasis. A whole swarm of flying gargoyles freezes solid in midair, and Lyra uses them as target practice, shattering them one by one. Lyra's experience bar climbs steadily, and her level pushes past 25 with ease. Then Lyra suddenly frowns. I think someone is following us. Through the soul pack, she picks up a faint, elusive sensation of being watched from somewhere behind. I remain completely unbothered. Would killing them give us any experience? Lyra nearly chokes. Attacking other players inside a dungeon is a serious crime. You'd be hunted down and punished by the authorities. Fine, forget it then. The boss comes first. Let's move before someone else gets there. My mind shifts, and an invisible force of energy wraps around both of us. Temporal acceleration. Applied to our own spatial movement speed, our figures blur instantly, and then vanish entirely. In no time, Lyra and I break through into the final zone, and the space opens up before us. At the center of the plane, a bone throne looms, radiating a suffocating pressure. Upon it, a massive silhouette flickers in and out of view. This is the dungeon's lord, a level 50 grade A bloodline boss, the Bone Sovereign. But the plane is far from quiet. Several teams have already gathered around the throne. The aura coming off every one of them starts at level 30 or higher. The leading team is entirely composed of level 35 and above, led by a man named Rex Valor, one of the top students in his third year at Radiant Academy. His own aura clocks in at level 38, the single strongest presence on the field. Just then, Lance Croft arrives with his squad in tow. This is the same group that had been shadowing Lyra earlier, and they have had their eyes on her and her contracted creature for a while. The moment Lance reads the situation, his expression sours completely. Damn it. With them here, the first kill is basically out of reach, just as frustration is eating him alive. The corner of his eye catches Lyra and Ethan standing not far away. Greed surges through him instantly. If the boss is off the table, then I'll just take that little nobody and her creature instead. This trip won't be a waste after all. Meanwhile, back at the central hall of the dungeon plaza, Celine Mist steps out of a 3-star dungeon portal. The leaderboard on the main display begins its next refresh cycle. Everyone fully expects to see Celine Mist at the top, but when the second place name lights up, the entire hall goes dead still. Then it erupts into absolute chaos. Celine stands there as if struck by lightning. How is that possible? The memory of her own mockery toward Lyra comes flooding back, and now she's getting a full slap in the face. At this moment, the two important figures mentioned earlier also arrive at the hall. They've come specifically to get a look at Lyra, but after speaking with the staff, they learn that Lyra and her contracted creature have already entered a 5-star dungeon, and that no one else can enter until the boss is defeated or the dungeon resets. The expressions on both their faces grow heavy. If something goes wrong in there, it would be a very serious problem. Back inside the 5-star dungeon, the noisy plane falls into a deathly silence the moment the Bone Sovereign stirs awake. Move in. In an instant, every team surges forward almost simultaneously, charging straight at the Bone Sovereign on his throne. A burst of multicolored abilities explodes across the Bone Sovereign's massive frame. Yet faced with the storm of attacks pouring in from all sides, the Bone Sovereign lets out a single low rumbling growl, and a layer of undead shielding rises slowly around him, deflecting the majority of the blows. Only Rex Valor's heavy greatsword strike manages to land. His defense is too high. Everyone focus your attacks on one point. But at that very moment, something changes. A roar utterly unlike anything before blasts out from within the Bone Sovereign's skull, carrying within it a terrifying draconic pressure that sweeps across the entire plane in an instant. Then a massive surge of energy detonates from within the Bone Sovereign's body, and in mere seconds he transforms into a colossal and terrifying dragon. Warning, the Bone Sovereign has activated an ancient dragon bloodline, level raised to 55, all stats dramatically increased, dungeon difficulty rating elevated to 6-star. One of the students charging at the front takes one look at the mutated Bone Sovereign, and his face drains of all color. Are you kidding me? How does a 5-star dungeon mutate like this? Run! Panic spreads like a plague. The fully mutated Bone Sovereign immediately locks onto Rex Valor's team, the ones who had been hitting him hardest. He raises one enormous bone claw and slams it down, the dragon's pressure crashing down like a wave that rattles the soul. Rex's pupils contract sharply. He channels every last drop of his power into his greatsword, and braces it in front of him, roaring, "Full defense!" His teammates react in kind, their defensive abilities flaring to life all at once, but the massive bone claw tears through every single defense like popping bubbles. The greatsword shrieks under the unbearable force, and Rex Valor spits a mouthful of blood, his body hurled backward and slamming hard into the ground far away. His teammates behind him don't even get the chance to scream. They are reduced to a crimson mist beneath that devastating strike. The sharp stench of blood fills the air, and screams ring out from every direction. Yet Lance Croft, watching this brutal scene from a safe distance, shows not a trace of fear. Instead, a look of twisted delight spreads across his face. His eyes cut through the chaos and lock hungrily onto Lyra, who has gone just as pale as everyone else. Doesn't matter if we miss the boss. Once things get a little messier out there, we make our move. Meanwhile, Lyra has just witnessed Rex Valor's entire team get wiped out right in front of her eyes, and the sheer terror is making it hard for her to stay on her feet. She turns to Ethan instinctively, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please, we need to leave. This is way beyond anything we can handle. He will kill us." She can see it clearly. The mutated Bone Sovereign's power has multiplied several times over. There is simply no way their level can stand against something like this. But Ethan, standing right beside her, looks at this terrifying sight without a shred of fear, and smiles. His deep eyes light up with a level of excitement she has never seen from him before. "A dragon bloodline? Now that's interesting. Kill it, and the experience is going to go through the roof." My voice is burning with anticipation. What are you thinking? Every alarm in Lyra's head is going off at once. What am I thinking? A reckless grin pulls at the corner of my mouth. I'm gonna go play with a dragon. Then a colossal dark crimson energy, drawn from the very origin of time and space, detonates from within Ethan as the deep toll of an ancient clock resonates across the entire battlefield. A dark gold drive unit appears in Ethan's hand as if from nowhere, and he snaps it precisely into place at his waist. The Dusk Sovereign raises his right hand slowly, and a dark gold clock face gradually materializes. He presses the button on the clock face. As the resonant sound of the clock face rings out, a dark crimson energy storm erupts from the Dusk Sovereign, surging skyward. Countless colossal phantom clocks flicker in and out of the storm, filling the air with a deafening roar of time and space. Then the spectral forms of 20 knights flash through the storm, dissolving into streams of light that merge into the armor, adding layer upon layer of power and authority. Then a temporal pressure that towers above all things surges outward with a thunderous force, and collides head-on with the dragon's blazing gold aura domain. The next instant, the Dusk Sovereign teleports directly in front of the boss. Everyone watching is certain he is walking to his death. Lance Croft, watching from a safe distance, lets out a snort. Reckless fool. Once that thing swats him dead, it saves me the trouble. But at this moment, Lyra feels something through the soul pact. An unshakable resolve. Her fists clench tight. "If this is the path you've chosen, then I will face it with you." And she launches herself forward like a bolt of light, charging straight toward Ethan. No way, they actually charged in, under the weight of countless stunned and disbelieving stares. As the Bone Sovereign's massive claw comes crashing down, the Dusk Sovereign doesn't dodge, doesn't move. He simply raises one armored arm with complete calm, temporal stasis. An invisible force of time and space explodes outward in all directions, and the enormous claw, capable of crushing mountains, slows dramatically, before freezing completely in midair. No way, he just stopped the boss's attack hold. Every pair of eyes on the field goes wide. The Dusk Sovereign's voice comes through the soul pact. Lyra stares at the frozen claw of annihilation hanging above them, and immediately raises both hands, pouring out every drop of her spirit power without holding anything back. The shield that normally carries a 10-second cooldown resets instantly after the Dusk Sovereign applies temporal acceleration, and Lyra feels the skill snap back to ready in the blink of an eye. Spirit barrier. She doesn't hesitate for a single second, stacking layer after layer of spirit barriers over both herself and the Dusk Sovereign at a nearly frenzied pace. The Bone Sovereign is furious at these insects who dare to defy him. In an instant, his other claw tears through the air in a sweeping strike, while his massive jaws part open, beginning to gather a terrifying force capable of destroying everything. But my figure flickers like a phantom under temporal acceleration, sidestepping the lethal swipe with ease. As for what is building in those jaws, I simply raise one finger and point at the gathering energy. Temporal backflow. The entire buildup reverses, and for just a moment, the terrifying dragon breath falters, as if its charge-up has been forcibly cut off. At the sight of this, every trace of mockery vanishes from Lancecroft's face, replaced by deep, undeniable shock and fear. Under the frozen, awestruck stares of everyone present, the space surrounding the Dusk Sovereign slowly bleeds into deep crimson, as countless phantom clocks materialize at his back, filling the air with a heart-shaking resonance. Even the raging Bone Sovereign seems to instinctively sense an overwhelming threat. The Dusk Sovereign slowly raises his right arm, and then slams it hard against the drive unit at his waist. As the sound of that final judgment rings out, the Dusk Sovereign leaps high into the sky, the clouds part slowly, and a colossal phantom gear manifests across the heavens. Everyone scrambles backward as fast as they can, desperate not to be caught in the devastating shockwave. Lyra tilts her head back to look up at the sky, her eyes filled with absolute awe. She pulls up Ethan's status panel, and sees that every single stat has multiplied by 10 during his ultimate release. At this moment, the Bone Sovereign senses that this is truly the end, and unleashes a furious roar, holding nothing back. Every draconic scale lights up at once as his core ignites, and a devastating death breath surges toward Ethan first, but then something jaw-dropping happens. The death breath, as it closes in on Ethan, visibly reverses direction, and retracts fully back into the Bone Sovereign's own mouth. Under countless horrified stares, the Dusk Sovereign slowly lifts his right leg, dark crimson energy gathering around it and forming a massive spiraling vortex. Within the vortex's core, the spectral forms of 20 knights take shape, and in an instant, all 20 merge completely with the Dusk Sovereign. The next moment, a force carrying the weight of absolute finality launches toward the Bone Sovereign. A dark crimson arc cuts across the sky, piercing straight through the Bone Sovereign's body with perfect precision, and under the consuming force of the ultimate release, the Bone Sovereign's entire form dissolves into countless particles and fades into the air. The colossal phantom gear in the sky slowly fades, and the entire plane falls into silence. Temporal acceleration, applied to the remaining monster existence timelines within the dungeon. The level-up chimes begin immediately after, ringing out in a relentless barrage until the level finally settles at 40, where the Bone Sovereign once stood. Several ancient items slowly materialize. Obtained 10,000-year Dragon Lord's Core. Obtained Chrono Dragon Mirror. Obtained Weathered Dragon Bone Greaves. At the same time, a stream of pure, ancient dark gold dragon essence flows on its own accord directly into Ethan's body, absorbing 10,000-year dragon bloodline essence. Dusk Sovereign bloodline fusion in progress. Temporal law completeness raised to 18%. New ability unlocked, Chrono Dragon's Breath. All stats permanently increased by 30%. Not bad at all. Worthy of a 5-star dungeon boss. Cleared that many levels in one go. At this moment, the eyes of everyone around burn with intense hunger, all of them staring at the treasures now lying on the ground. The flames of greed flicker in countless gazes. But the moment they look at Ethan standing nearby, every one of those flames goes out. Hold on! And there is Lancecroft, the man who was nearly scared out of his skin just moments ago, strutting forward with full confidence. Lyra, you can't count this as a solo kill. My squad fought this thing hard before you ever showed up, and we paid a real price for it. So these spoils should rightfully be divided between both parties. We'll only take what's ours. That's only fair, isn't it? He is leveraging Lyra's conflict-avoidant nature, trying to trap her with the language of reason and fairness. But before Lyra can say a word, a cold voice cuts through the air. Did I say you could touch anything? That single warning, laced with killing intent, sends a chill straight down the spine of every member of Lance's squad. But with the treasures so close they could almost reach out and touch them, greed wins out over fear. Don't try to intimidate us. We bled for this. Taking our share is only right. You wouldn't really make a move out in the open like this, would you? Sev, go grab that crystal. Sev hears the order, and though a flicker of reluctance crosses his face, greed takes the upper hand. He blurs into motion, launching himself straight toward the gleaming Chrono Dragon Mirror. Hopeless. The words have barely left his mouth before the Dusk Sovereign raises his right hand, fingers closing into a tight fist aimed at the direction of Sev's charge. A dull, heavy sound ripples outward, and the level 35 assassin freezes mid-lunge, his body seized as if gripped by an invisible force. The next moment, his body shatters and dissolves completely. Another one-shot kill. What kind of monster is he? Yet Lancecroft, taking in the scene, shows not an ounce of fear. Instead, a look of unhinged frenzy spreads across his face. He jabs a finger toward the Dusk Sovereign and Lyra. Everyone saw that. He just killed someone inside a dungeon, a fellow student from the same academy. The evidence is right there. Lyra, you two are finished. He wheels around to face the other students fishing for support. Enough noise. Two ice-cold words cut Lance's performance dead. The Dusk Sovereign's dark crimson eyes sweep over Lance's squad without expression. Temporal decay. As that judgment rings out, the faces of every member of Lance's squad freeze in place. and then their skin begins to dry and shrivel at a visible, terrifying rate, wrinkling and cracking apart piece by piece. In less than a single breath, only 3 withered husks remain where they stood. A gentle breeze passes, and they crumble into pale gray ash and are gone. Only now do the surrounding students snap back to their senses. His contractor is definitely in trouble now. Murmurs erupt from every corner. Lyra feels all those complicated stares and whispers pressing in, and her face goes a little pale. I notice her unease and step forward. Don't panic, and don't take responsibility for any of this. The value and potential we've just shown will make the authorities very interested in us. Remember, when you are strong enough, you don't follow the rules. You are the rules. These words shatter every trace of fear and anxiety inside Lyra in an instant. She pulls up her own status panel on instinct, and the moment she sees her level and newly unlocked skills, confidence floods back into her. You're right! At this moment, several sharp sonic booms tear through the air, and an aura of rigid authority and lethal intent instantly blankets the entire plane. A 4-man enforcement squad, all above level 45, materializes precisely at the center of the field. The enforcement captain at the front has a piercing gaze, locked hard onto the 2 most conspicuous figures on the field. He bellows immediately, "Whoever made the kills just now, step forward at once." One of his team members steps up quickly and leans in with a hushed report. "Captain, Rex Valor's life monitoring signal has gone completely dark." At those words, Enforcement Captain Garrett Hale's eyes flash with a brief, genuine grief. Rex Valor was one of Radiant Academy's most carefully nurtured talents. Someone must answer for his death. He then fixes his stare on Ethan and Lyra. As for Lance Croft's squad, even if they were in the wrong, it was not your place to execute them. Hand over everything you obtained from the boss right now, and come with me to the tribunal hall for questioning, or don't say I didn't warn you. The greed in his voice is completely undisguised. At this point, one of the students can't hold back. "Captain Hale, I can testify. Rex Valor was killed by the mutated Bone Sovereign. These 2 had nothing to do with it." Garrett Hale doesn't even acknowledge it. He cuts the student off completely. Then he turns back and orders the 2 of them to surrender their items and come quietly. The moment the words leave his mouth, a staggering aura erupts from him. Level 58. His 3 teammates release their powers simultaneously, forming a combat formation pressure of overwhelming force, bearing down on the 2 of them once more. Yet faced with this crushing pressure, the Dusk Sovereign doesn't move a muscle. Garrett Hale's eyes flash with cold hostility at the sight. Stubborn to the end, take him down. In an instant, he leads the charge himself, his entire body becoming a streak of light, a crimson flame spear forming in his hand, driving straight toward Ethan's chest with absolutely nothing held back. "Watch out!" Lyra cries. She instinctively moves to deploy a shield, but against this savage strike, Ethan simply raises his right hand with perfect calm and snaps it against the drive unit at his waist. Temporal shatter! The resonant sound echoes across the battlefield. The next second, with the Dusk Sovereign at the center, the flow of time across the entire plane shifts violently. Garrett Hale's lightning-fast figure suddenly appears to everyone watching as if moving through thick water, and his teammates behind him mid-formation, moving even slower than that. What is happening? Garrett realizes in horror that his mind is running perfectly fine, but his body simply cannot keep up. The Dusk Sovereign walks calmly up to Garrett Hale, dark crimson eyes watching his horror-twisted expression without emotion. Sovereign's domain. 20 spectral knights materialize at the Dusk Sovereign's back, radiating a suffocating pressure. Then the Dusk Sovereign gives a casual wave of his hand, and the first knight's phantom bursts forward, driving a fist straight into Garrett Hale's chest. With a sickening thud, Garrett spits a mouthful of blood, yet even the motion of being thrown back plays out in agonizing slow motion. Then every single one of the 20 knights takes their turn, and Garrett can do nothing but watch, completely unable to block a single blow. Garrett howls through gritted teeth, his eyes burning with defiance, but the Dusk Sovereign remains utterly unmoved, until the final knight unleashes his finishing strike, triggering a devastating explosion that brings everything to a close. The instant the Sovereign's domain lifts, Garrett Hale's body is obliterated by the accumulated force, reduced to a crimson mist that fills the air, fading into nothing. The entire plane falls dead silent. Into that stunned, breathless silence, several overwhelming auras descend without warning. At the front is the Lord of Azure Haven himself, Zephyr Thane, arriving with his personal guard just in time. His gaze lingers on Ethan for a brief moment, brow furrowing slightly, but he says nothing yet. Instead, he takes in the carnage around him and the terror-stricken enforcement squad nearby. Then he gives a slight nod, his voice steady. It seems quite a lot has happened here. That simple, measured, "it seems" already signals that he has read the situation clearly, and carries within it an unmistakable recognition of the power the Dusk Sovereign has displayed. Then Zephyr Thane turns an ice-cold gaze on the enforcement squad. "The matter of Rex Valor, I will investigate personally. If he truly died at the hands of a dungeon creature, I will give Radiant Academy a full account. But if anyone intends to use this as a pretext to move against those under my protection, here in my city, then don't expect me to show any courtesy." The enforcement squad members take one look at the situation and vanish in a flash of white light. With the nuisances gone, Ethan lets his mind settle and shifts back into his human form. Without a moment's hesitation, he retrieves the 2 rewards just obtained. Ethan equips the weathered dragonbone greaves, then draws out the translucent chrono dragon crystal. He channels his power and absorbs it immediately, and Ethan can feel it clearly. Something fundamental within his very life essence is undergoing a transformation. When the absorption is complete and the greaves are equipped, every one of Ethan's stats surges dramatically upward. Once Ethan has fully finished absorbing everything, Zephyr Thane steps forward with a respectful expression and extends an invitation to meet with Elder Voss at the City Lord's mansion. The two of them accept without hesitation. Before long, guided by Zephyr Thane, they arrive at a simple, ancient-feeling room. An elderly man stands with his back to them, gazing out the window. At the sound of footsteps, he turns slowly, revealing a face weathered by a lifetime of hardship. This is Cain Voss, the legendary figure known as the God of War. After a conversation that stretches on for 2.5 hours, the two of them finally learn that Cain Voss wishes to invite them to take part in the Fate War 6 months from now. But the slots for the Fate War are not simply given, they must be earned. What Cain Voss can offer is resources and a platform, enough to put the slots within their reach. After taking it all in, Ethan gives a slight nod. Then, under the surprised eyes of both Zephyr Thane and Lyra, he gives an answer no one expects. We'll need to think about it. Zephyr Thane can't hold back. Think about it? This is the highest honor one can serve for the nation and the resources Elder Voss is offering. Cain Voss raises a hand to stop him. His deep, measured gaze settles on Ethan, carrying no pressure, only understanding and patience. It's fine. When it comes to choices that shape one's future, caution is only right. These things cannot be forced. I'll give you time to think. The breadth of this man's character is truly something else. He says nothing more. If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. One more thing. Cain Voss pauses, then continues. After you complete the Awakening trial, a large-scale joint dungeon called the Abyssal Corridor will open. It is a proving ground designed specifically for the most gifted talents below level 100, and the opportunities inside are beyond measure. The Eastern War Division holds only 2 direct entry slots, and I am offering one of them to you, personally. Regardless of whether you ultimately choose to fight for the nation, that slot is yours. Consider it a small investment in the seeds of this nation's future. Lyra looks over at Ethan with bright, excited eyes. Ethan's step falters for just a moment. He is silent for a beat, then simply says 2 words, "Thank you." With that, he walks out without a backward glance. Watching the two of them leave, Zephyr Thane turns to Cain Voss with barely concealed frustration. Elder Voss, why do you indulge him like this? That kid is way too arrogant. The Fate War is a matter of national importance, and he says he needs to think about it? Cain Voss raises a hand and cuts him off, his tone leaving no room for debate. I'll be staying in the city for the time being, and I want everything for the Abyssal Corridor prepared. Zephyr Thane straightens immediately. Understood, Elder Voss. He understands. Elder Voss intends to oversee things personally, guarding the path for those 2 young people, and, at the same time, it is a silent act of waiting and watching. The weight behind the Dusk Sovereign's hesitation is far greater than any of them have imagined. Out in the corridor, Lyra hurries to catch up with Ethan, and speaks in a low, slightly grumbling voice. Why didn't we just say yes? The Fate War is dangerous, sure, but it's for the country. Ethan doesn't slow down. He's placing the weight of a nation's crisis and expectations on our shoulders, yet he can't even offer us a defined standing in return. That isn't an equal partnership. It's a high-risk investment where we bear all the risk. The value we've shown is worth far more sincerity and patience from him. He turns his head slightly. Remember, until we have absolute power, every promise is just empty words. The two of them walk in silence until they reach the entrance of the dungeon plaza. And the moment they step outside, a figure blocks their path. It is Dorian Cross, the one who had tried to recruit Lyra earlier, only to back down the moment Ethan looked his way. Now he stands in front of Ethan with a stiff smile plastered on his face, his tone oozing flattery. Dusk Sovereign, please, a moment of your time. I'm Dorian Cross. Might we have a brief word? The Cross family would very much like to. He doesn't get to finish. Ethan doesn't even break his stride. One single, ice-cold word drops from his lips. Leave. Just one word, yet it carries a cold that seems to freeze the soul, hitting Dorian square in the chest. A primal, instinctive terror closes around his throat, leaving him unable to produce a single sound. He stands frozen, watching helplessly, as the two of them walk straight past him without a second glance. Only when their figures disappear does the suffocating pressure lift, and Dorian's legs give out beneath him, sending him crumpling to the ground. All that remains is the trembling relief of someone who has narrowly escaped something terrible. But when he looks up and meets the complicated stares from those around him, his fists clench tight. He, the young lord of the Cross family, when has he ever been humiliated like this? I swear it here and now, one day, I will make you both pay for this. After leaving the dungeon district, the two of them walk along a quiet street. Lyra is still processing everything that has happened today, clearing a 6-star dungeon, meeting the God of War, her emotions riding a roller coaster that won't slow down. But just as the moment feels almost peaceful, a dark violet rift tears open in the space not far ahead, and an aura completely alien to this world floods out in an instant. Then a figure leaps through, a humanoid lizard creature slowly taking shape, its eyes locking onto the two people on the street immediately. A void creature! Lyra's face goes pale in an instant as she instinctively steps behind Ethan. This void creature is exactly what Lyra had described before. A monster from another dimension, and its aura registers at a full level 30. For an average awakened person, that is an extremely serious threat. Yet Ethan's reaction is so calm it borders on infuriating. He doesn't even shift his stance. he simply waits. And the moment the creature lunges, he raises one hand and snaps his fingers into the air. The level 30 void creature freezes solid in midair, and then its massive body visibly shrivels and erodes, before finally collapsing entirely into dust. Temporal rewrite. Target existence accelerated to 10,000 years. The next second, a massive flood of experience surges in and fills the experience bar to overflowing. The amount is staggering, far greater than what the Bone Sovereign gave. In a single instant, the level rockets from 40 all the way to 47. Even Ethan can't help but feel a flicker of surprise. Why is this experience gain so extreme? He glances back at Lyra with a trace of curiosity. Lyra explains, that's just how void creatures are. At their core, they are pure concentrations of chaos and destructive energy. The experience you get from killing them far surpasses anything from native monsters or dungeon creatures. And they can carry rare materials from other dimensions. That's why, even knowing how dangerous they are, nations and major factions still organize forces to hunt them, within controlled limits. At these words, a blazing light ignites in Ethan's eyes. These void creatures are basically walking experience packages. So where can we find more of them? If void creatures could just show up anywhere inside a human city, we'd all be dead already. They only appear at fixed spatial rift outbreak zones, or in areas heavily contaminated by energy from other dimensions. Cities have powerful barrier formations and protective forces. Under normal circumstances, it's simply not possible. The words cut off abruptly, and her expression shifts with them. Ethan catches it immediately. So why did a level 30 void creature just appear out of nowhere on a street inside the city, and right in front of them, no less? There is only one explanation. This void creature was being kept by someone here, inside the city, and it just got loose.